We're after 6, so if everybody's ready, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Ken's getting plugged in over there. I'll make him do our official roll call when he's ready.
Didn't it feel good to be the boss for about 5 minutes?
Yeah, just a couple minutes.
All right. Grady Bonzel. Here. Dennis Needham. Matt McKenzie.
Here.
Mary Ellen.
Here.
And Wally Henson.
Here. You had to run up the steps, didn't you?
Yeah.
All right, any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the first order of business, an ordinance amending the text for Chapter 19, Section 202 definitions. Zach, you leading that? That's not very affirmative.
We included a document in your,
Yeah.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
this is an ordinance adopting and amending Section 19-202 of the City of Goodland Municipal Code to adopt the definition for accessory dwelling unit and omitting design standards for modular and manufactured homes residential districts. There's also some other things within the definitions that are included, but this is the whole list of definitions within Section 202. So, oops, sorry. And we have gone through this before. This is the final ordinance. Well, it's not the final ordinance form, but the ordinance forms with some comments to the side that we included in your packet. So, what would you like us to do? Would you like us to go through every single item?
I was going to say, let's just look at the comments over there. That's kind of where I focused when I was reading through this, just to see what the edits were.
Right.
It's like some of them were just formatting, it looked like, but
Right.
maybe let's hit on the ones where there's some comments in the comments.
Sure. The first one on the bottom of the page, first page, is accessory dwelling unit. And the accessory dwelling unit is a second subordinate dwelling unit located on the same lot as a primary dwelling unit or commercial unit. The unit includes its own independent living facilities with provisions for sleeping, cooking, sanitation, and is designed for residential occupancy independent of the primary dwelling unit or commercial unit. The unit may have a separate entrance or an entrance to an internal common area accessible to the outside and may or may not be attached to or integrated within the same structure as the primary dwelling unit, including a basement, addition, floor, or portion of a floor. So, and there was a couple comments to the side, but we've had quite a bit of discussion about the accessory dwelling units.
You want these handed out?
That's one set just for you.
Oh.
Everybody else is on a computer screen. I'm looking at it, so. And I need to get mine up on the computer as well. But does that bring up any questions for you all?
Kind of. Does that mean, is it something that is rented or just something like maybe like a mother-in-law apartment in a basement that's not paying rent? Does it cover both of those scenarios?
It covers really everything.
Okay.
From whether it's the basement or just a house split with separate entrances or
Okay.
one entrance that goes two ways to being the detached in the backyard.
And it doesn't, renting or, money changing hands is nothing to do with it. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. I'm trying to pull up what we have currently to reference on.
If I'm not mistaken, that doesn't require an additional power source. They use the same power feature, correct?
When they're detached is when it really comes into play.
Okay.
Especially if they're going to be used as rentals. Because if the person in the house, say they're both rental units, if the person in the house doesn't pay their utilities, the person that lives in the ADU shouldn't lose utilities because they failed to pay their part of it.
Sure, okay.
I see in that comment right there, was a question about, please check to see if you will require a separate tap. Does that need to be in the definition, or is that outside of the definition when you dig into what you need to comply with?
Yes,
The latter,
Okay.
instead of the first part of
Yeah.
your answer, the second part.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's in 19502
Okay.
that we've been working on
Good enough.
also.
And we haven't had, Zach brought up, we've had 501 and 502, which is the table.
Yeah.
And the uses.
Okay.
And Barb's recommended to us strongly to wait to have the city commission approve 501 and 502. And do that at the same time that 202s.
Okay.
So, because the definitions kind of go hand in hand with that table
Yes.
and with the uses. So.
Okay.
Any other questions on accessory dwelling unit?
There.
And then we basically go to page 3, which becomes big agricultural. Which we have crop agriculture and livestock agriculture, because those were combined. The definition of agriculture in the current code is not good. All right.
So agriculture itself is the planting, cultivating, harvesting, and storage of grains, hay, or plants commonly grown in Sherman County. Limited is the use of land for production of row crops, field crops, tree crops, or timber, and general is the use of land for production of livestock, dairy products, poultry, or poultry products.
So it combined everything into one definition.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's separated into two different things here.
Yep.
And why that occurred. So does that make sense with that?
Yes.
I asked a dumb question. So, with the people having chickens in their backyard or whatever, does that fall under that? Or livestock? I don't know. If that's all in that.
It does, but then we had a separate ordinance that excluded the chicken.
Okay.
So
I think what I heard is what you read, Zach, was the old way it read, and it did talk about poultry. In the new way, we got more general to just sort of all-encompassing of livestock, but not go down and define.
right, the actual
Fees.
rules
Yeah.
regarding livestock is
This-
gonna be in a different part.
That'll
of
be
the
a
code.
different part. Where the old definition kind of started getting it, making a rule.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't want rules in our definitions.
Yes.
We're just trying to learn how to talk
Yeah.
with this stuff. So
Okay.
there was a minor addition to alley at the bottom of that page. A minor or secondary way that is used primarily for utility access and secondarily. That's the addition. For the vehicular service. Access to the back or side of properties otherwise abutting on the street. Sometimes that gets a little confusion as far as how much it's maintained.
Yeah.
And the primary, why we have alleys or why they were created in the first place, is to create a way for the utilities to get across. So,
I like that it specifically calls out secondarily for vehicle access. That's good.
it's still there
Yeah.
and it's still loud. It's just,
It's just not the primary purpose. Yeah.
so. On the next page, and you guys stop me if I go too quick or I have a question, just stop. Stop me. Say, Kent, you're talking too much. At the top of the next page is animal care general, which is a use providing animal care, vet service, daycare, grooming, or boarding, including outside animal runs. Again, and then animal care limited
Yeah.
for household pets with no outside animal runs. So it's basically the animal run system. And the reason why we kind of kept this animal, if I remember correctly, is it's related to other areas of code and certain rules that come up
In the use standards.
in the use standards. So,
Basically where they're allowed was zone. So this separates so you're not having a dog daycare with kennels in the middle of a neighborhood with dogs barking all day.
and then we have apartment, which is basically crossed out, correct?
Yeah.
Eliminate the reference to apartments, basically, so the use table and standards will be the rule, because I can't remember what her full reasoning was, though.
The definition of apartment starts getting a little wonky.
Well, and it overlaps a lot with an ADU.
It does with that, and then it also, as far as it provides complication as far as the definition of the apartment. Yeah. Anything else regarding those things? Good. And then we go on to the next page, and we have a change in the definition of bed and breakfast. I think we talked about that quite a bit at the last meeting. So there's the result: a private home converted multifamily dwelling or other such similar land use, operated on a fee basis as a business by providing overnight lodging for a period of less than 30 days. That's important because if it's more than 30 days, it becomes, like you brought up in the conversation, right? As far as, that's rentals.
Right.
That's not bed and breakfast. And provides food service for guests only. So, and then it has a definition of a boarding and rooming house. And then it's a little bit different for a boarding and rooming house. That can be longer than the 30 days. But it can also involve compensation that's other than cash only. We crossed out the two. Apparently previously we had two different definitions of boarding house and one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next definitions is brew pub or microbrewery, and then also brewery. Just to include it as far as, they have to follow state statutes. So there's, brew pubs is very difficult in Kansas to get down, but that might change at some point. But that's included there. On the next page, you can take this one, Zach.
I gotta get scrolled up here. B for building, defining what building is. There's kind of two options here, which is what we want to ask you guys, what you feel more comfortable with. The first one is what's already in the code, and the second one, building, is any enclosed structure having a roof supported by columns or walls and intended for shelter, housing, or enclosure of any individual, animal, process, equipment, goods, or materials of any kind. So it's just not as wordy.
It's also the definition in your
Out of the IBC.
out of the I codes.
Oh, I like that.
Really simple.
Yeah. I like the second one better.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yes, but I have like the trailer issue. These are just. Is that covered in rules?
What trailer issue?
The first wording code, it says a trailer as herein defined shall not be classified as a building.
I believe we have that defined further down.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a separate
Okay.
definition for trailer.
Okay.
We'll make 100% sure. I'm 99%.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
looking.
No,
at
I'm just, there needs to be a distinction somewhere.
Right.
I believe the reason why we took that out is because now you're putting rules in your definitions.
Oh,
There are rules in place. Chapter 9, section 1,
okay.
112 or 113 that states you can't have a RV basically parked anywhere for longer than 30 days, and you must obtain a permit first if you are not within a mobile home park or an RV park.
Okay.
And then that can only get extended once for a period of 12 years. So technically you have 60 days as long as you're not causing issues.
Okay. Okay.
Then of course the exceptions of, say you bought a house, you can't live in it yet, you want to remodel it,
Right.
then you can stay in your camper while you're fixing it up, as long as obviously you're not. I'm still fixing it.
Yeah. Yeah. 15 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you mean by trailer, a manufactured home, mobile
Right,
home
well,
type thing, that's covered elsewhere. too.
Okay. Yeah, because, yeah.
Also, there was a comment about, will this include carports? Does that include carports? I would,
Carports have their own definition a little further down.
I would say, I wouldn't think that would be a building.
Well, it's whether it's an enclosed structure.
Enclosed, I
As
think,
long as
would
it's
be the keyword.
open on two sides, it's considered a carport.
Although it does say supported by columns or walls.
Mhm.
So if it's only supported by columns,
Think of a post frame building
oh, okay.
opposed to your
The
stick
keyword
built
in that whole
house.
statement is enclosed.
Um,
But an enclosure could be a fence around a carport.
Or I think you would like 10 around the carport or a wrap.
Yeah, I've seen particle board
Yeah.
that goes. So, I mean,
Park, big park.
and it's an enclosure.
Are we getting in the weeds here?
Yeah.
Probably.
A little bit, maybe.
Okay.
But again, this is a lot of stuff, and we haven't met for
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
3 months basically. So, next one is building line, which is more about the middle sentence is still there. The average setback between the existing structures within 100 feet of any new structure, measured from the edge of pavement of the street on which the structures front to the closest front corners of each adjacent structure. That's the remainder part of the definition that's
And
left.
the reason why they're defined separately from established to just normal building line is if you're building and there's nothing within that 100 feet, well, then you're just going off of the building line, and that's what you follow per code, which would be the 25 feet, I think, is what we settled on.
Mm-hmm.
If it's established, well, there's some places around town that are 17, 15.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you have building line established and then just building line.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Makes sense, yes.
As you continue on, we just highlighted an item within temporary building that won't be defined to ordinance, but it's just there. Same with the common open space at the bottom of page 7. Trying to find the next one that's
Common open space has been shortened. to an area of land or water or combination thereof planned for passive or active recreation and shall not include space devoted for streets, parking areas, loading areas, and accessory buildings. Which the new one or the old one has that, but it's a little more ruly because after it says loading areas, it goes, however, the area of recreational activities such as swimming pools, tennis courts, shuffleboard courts, etc. may be included as common open space. So that's a rule within the definition.
Mhm.
That's something you cover under the standards.
I think when you start saying things like shall not or shall, then you're making rules.
Yeah.
So, versus just a true definition of what is this.
So we took something out there, but it's not included in the copy. This version of the ordinance, correct? Is that
It's highlighted. Well, the word space is,
right?
but there was no comments on the side of the document.
You removed a bunch of rules, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Under the communication tower, now at the top of that, everybody's probably well aware of the fact that our radio station is moving to the old Pizza Hut building. And they've got a tower sitting on the ground north of the building.
Mhm.
Are we involved at all in recommending what they can or can't do right there?
Those are all covered within the use standards for the way it's zoned. And under the zoning districts also. Which they have to be, if we're with residential, was it 100 feet from the property line?
Right.
But
that's not
since all of
residential,
that's
that's a
commercial
property.
over there, they kind of are a little more freely to have it elsewhere. My big thing about their placement was making sure it wasn't too close to power lines, just in the event something did happen and it did fall down, it wouldn't catch the power lines.
And it's not close enough to the road.
Yeah, the height of that tower and where it's placed, if it falls, about the only thing it could hit is their own building.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But we do have the definition of communication tower here. So it is there. The next item is density. That was it shortened? Is that?
Let me get down to it on our current one. It was lengthened.
I think it's a little bit longer.
So currently is the number of dwelling units which are allowed on an area of land, which area of land may include dedicated streets contained within the development. The new version says the number of dwelling units that may be constructed per the gross acreage of the land within the boundaries of the development shall not include land previously dedicated, purchased, or acquired for any public use or land devoted to non-residential uses such as commercial, office, and industrial or civic uses.
It's really just taking out or adding, it's not just the gross acreage of the land, but if there's dedicated public space, you don't want to include that
it's not included. Got it.
in the density.
Yep. Okay.
Department of Health and Environment, added that.
Development was a new addition. The act of carrying out any building activity or land excavation operation, the making of any material change in the use or appearance of any structure or land, or the dividing of land into two or more parcels. When in appropriate context, development shall also mean the act of developing the result of development. Development shall also include A through H. Next portion would be dwelling unit. We did take out duplex from the current definitions. Everything else kind of stayed the same for the most part. The multifamily changed just slightly. Single family stayed the same. And then that's where the two family or duplex got added for the deletion of duplex.
Mhm.
Moving on down, within the definitions, there was a definition for exception, and it's really, that's the variance.
Mhm.
So why provide additional complication?
Yep.
Code, so.
Yep.
Good.
Family, and then the definitions that were added was kitchen, all the stuff in blue.
Mhm.
And I think we talked quite a bit about that at one of the previous meetings too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then we didn't do anything with the next set of definitions until we get to the bottom of page 14.
I'll just back up a little bit on page 11. Because of a grammatical error, so notwithstanding, is that one word or should be towards the bottom there? So
It's good.
notwithstanding the criteria above,
I think that's one word.
Yeah.
is that one word?
One word,
Okay.
yeah.
That's, okay,
Yeah.
learned something, okay.
It can be 3 words or it can be 1 word.
Okay. I want to make sure.
It's 2024.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
It can be.
yeah. Thanks, yeah.
No, it would be just NWS.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
short.
There you go.
Well, I just learned the other day that you can't, not supposed to have 2 spaces after a period now, just one space.
I know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I always wrote 2
Actually,
changed
that's
it
been
all again.
around probably for 20 years. It's finally like,
I never learned that in
Yeah.
school.
They told us.
It's always
Yeah.
been it's always been one for me.
yeah.
It'll always be 2 for me.
You're not gonna change it.
Well, I remember, they say the reason is that eliminates that river of white in a
Depends
paragraph.
on how much.
That's
words
what
you
I
have
was
on your
told.
resume. If you like your resume, if you
More
like-
spaces. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have to fit it on 1 page or 2 pages.
I know.
I need a 5-page essay. There's 4 spaces.
Anyways, I guess we went squirrel.
Yeah, we got way off there.
Sorry.
So back to page 14.
At the bottom of page 14 is height of building and structures.
Notice looks a little off, but
It basically changed it completely.
Yes.
Mhm.
We've talked about this one a lot because there was a lot of discrepancy.
And I think this is more going with the building codes.
Yes.
So, yeah.
which one are we discussing?
Building height.
Oh, there's a choice, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, show it though. I guess.
There's kind of like really detailed, sort of detailed, and very much to the point of looking the code. That's what I see.
So per building code, it is the vertical distance from grade plane to the average height of the highest roof structure.
The average height?
I like the first one just because you're not including everything that's on top of the roof, chimneys, all of that stuff.
To me, especially if all that the other stuff is covered in the code, right? The specifics. To me, less is more on that one.
Yeah, I think the third one is probably not enough.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, I'm kind of in favor of the first one too.
Okay. Any concerns with that?
The grain elevator one at the top of page 14 seems a little bit vague. Do we want to see if we can add a little clarity to that or what? I mean, a tall building for storing grain, I guess that's the definition of a grain elevator, but it
Versus
could
a
be a
grain
bin. It could be a bin, couldn't it? A round bin?
I would say that's still a building.
Mm-hmm.
And still probably more similar to a grain elevator than anything else because you have to elevate it to get the feed into it. And they aren't really common. I mean, there's getting to be more and more multiple ways of storing grain.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't have to look like anything you can imagine. They can look like anything you can imagine.
Yeah, you can see what you would want.
From a regular looking building like you would store vehicles in to what you see at the end of Main Street. So I think it's probably better the way it is without getting too specific.
Thanks for bringing that up, Wally, because I don't think we looked at it before.
Okay.
The next one that's highlighted is household pet, or has any comments with it, and that was a domestic animal, customarily permitted to be kept in the dwelling for company or pleasure, including, and then it has a list there. We do have an animal section of the code, chapter 2, but this is within the definitions. I'm trying not to get too varied from it. And then a kennel, there's a little bit modification on it. But it's more just making it more regarding an establishment
Mm-hmm.
where any person engages in a business involving boarding, breeding, buying, keeping, whatever. For more than 4 domesticated animals. That are more than 3 months old. Doesn't matter. Puppies are kittens still.
Okay.
Moving on. On the bottom of page 17 is zoning lot, or lot, comma, zoning. And it's basically removed
Mm-hmm.
from code. And then we have manufactured housing park on the next page. Basically a parcel of land containing 2 or more spaces with required improvements and utilities. They're owned or leased for the long-term placement of manufactured homes. Any questions on that? And then we get to cruise for a while because there's no comments or corrections.
Cruising down Maine.
There's a lot of scrolling.
Mm-hmm.
Religious institution had a little bit of modification, but that was more just. I guess I shouldn't say, I don't think it was much. Oh, it was changed from religious assembly to religious institution. And then
I think the next one would be structure.
yeah. Well, you had service floor area, little hash mark by it. Was that?
I'm almost, I kind of have a question still about the religious institution.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean it can be just a parsonage? I mean, like if a group of people that is operating under like a 501c3 as a religious organization, they got together and bought a house for their leader, that would be considered a parsonage? Or can it be, I mean, if it's a recognized but doesn't have a church building, do you know what I'm saying?
This is an establishment primarily for the conduct of religious activities.
But it says,
A single person rectory is part of it.
right, or religious camp.
Yeah.
So, I don't mean to be,
These are more definitions for the zoning part of it,
okay,
whether it would fit.
because I know commonly parsonages are just a church-owned house somewhere in a different neighborhood even.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be.
Okay,
Currently, it says a site used by a bona fide religious group primarily or exclusively for religious worship and related religious services, including a place of worship, retreat site, or religious camp.
okay. And parsonage,
Wasn't
like that
covered.
residency part was added.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know. And the question is, should it be? It's just a residence. I mean,
To me, that's kind of how I feel. Because I mean, there won't be taxes if it's owned by a tax exempt organization, right? No matter where it is. I
Right.
mean, it could be a farmhouse out in the country,
Mm-hmm.
even though, or some, you know what I'm saying? I'm wondering if it really needs to even be in there. Because it doesn't give any special privileges, does it? It's just a zoning thing. And if it's a residence, like where a pastor's family lives or the priests, they're just living there, and if they can do, and it fits their home, whether it's a provided home or they're doing it themselves. It's just, they can have people over for like a Bible study, like anybody could at their house, correct?
Sure.
Yeah. So I don't know that is it necessary? Am I getting too picky?
No, I think it's worth a question. And I think I'll ask Barb. I don't have an answer.
Okay.
And
It's not like, if we're trying to be simpler.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the county's going to have to deal with that, and maybe they already have. 3 miles west on 8th Street, on the northwest corner of that intersection, is a relatively new structure that's used for a church, but also used for a residence. Everybody know where I'm talking about? Yeah.
No.
But that would be out of our jurisdiction, of course.
Right.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Well, and that's regarding the taxing part,
Right.
which is not what these definitions are for.
Right.
And it's a different entity that decides that. But for our purposes, as far as zoning, I'm not understanding why that's included.
I'm sure there's something that she's come across in the past, and that's why she included it in there. But as for the reasoning as to why, I don't know.
Maybe it's located at the same location with the church or the
On the same lot.
same lot or something.
At that
Could
point,
have to do with how the parsonage is attached, or maybe the church is new enough and small enough that all they have is the house so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
Right, true.
You know.
True.
We will ask.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's highlighted for structure.
Structure.
It's the exact same.
Okay.
The next one would be subdivider and subdivision, because currently we only have subdivision in the definitions.
Okay.
Which basically just explains who the person requesting the subdivision is.
Mm-hmm.
And then the definition of twin home is removed.
Mm-hmm.
Right now might be the first time I've ever heard of twin home. But
It's definitely redundant somehow.
They preferred using twin home instead of duplex, so it's
Yeah.
the old English.
yeah,
I don't know.
it's time to get with the times. Nobody says twin home anymore.
And then yard is the next set. And there's some kind of reformatting
Mm-hmm.
to make it
Make them all the same way. Yard front, yard rear, yard side instead of.
right.
Yep.
That's the last part.
Okay. Okay, anybody else have any other questions or concerns you want to bring up?
And if you would want to, if you don't have any other questions, besides the one we want to answer, but we can still set the date for the public hearing and give the answer at the public hearing.
That's what I was just going to say. Even though we have a little follow-up, can we go ahead and get the public hearing on the calendar, and then we can finalize that at the public hearing, and then we'll make our recommendation.
Recommendation to go ahead beyond that. Yeah.
So, available public hearing dates, it probably makes the most sense to tie it in with our next meeting, don't you guys think?
Yes, which would be November 12th. And that's enough time.
That gives us enough time to do everything. Publicly, or publish, what we're required to do to publish that we're going to have it right. It's got to be in the paper for 2 weeks or whatever.
Yeah,
20 days.
20 days.
Okay, so any other discussion on that? All right, right, so I move that we set a public hearing for the ordinance amending text for chapter 19, section 202 definitions for November 12th at our next regular planning commission meeting.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Matt, seconded by Mary Ellen. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, date is set. Okay, moving on. Discussion of rear yard setback requirements. So this came up with immediately after we set a new rule, then we had variance requests.
Right.
So
yes.
maybe we didn't get it right. We should think about this a little bit more.
Well, and Zach asked the
CBTA.
construction board, trades and appeals, and asked their comment on the request for variance on the rear yard. So,
And the whole purpose of setting that setback further is to help prevent water from running down the alleys and backing up into people's garages and that kind of thing and tearing up the alleys. And then also in the future, if somebody wants to put garage doors on it, they still have that opportunity because it's not so close to the road. They don't have turning room. So they all felt it was still fair from the 10 feet. And then if you want to get closer than that, like we just did with the variances, we can say, yes, you can get closer to this, but you can't have doors on it.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
and you got to remember what was the code for 20, 30 years before that was if you turned into it like you're making a normal left turn or a normal right turn, it was 10 feet.
Mhm.
If you just kind of slid into it and were facing the same way as the alley, it could be only 3 feet away. Now, we do have a couple garages that are right on the alley, 0 feet,
Mhm.
that somehow were built. We have others that are closer than 10 feet. But to have the standard at 10 feet and then have someone come and request, the construction board said that's not too much of a burden from their point of view. And since we had the two requests bang bang,
Mhm.
quick by each other, you saw what they had to provide to be able to do that. Just because I want to, it's probably not enough. It's like, okay, can it work?
Yeah, they both had good solutions to make it work. So I think maybe that's the right way to go.
See, and if there's more, you can always come back and visit it and say, well, let's look at it again and see. But then if it's not going to be 10 feet, what's the distance it should be? And with the length of cars and bigger vehicles, little vehicles, whatever, that turning into it, obviously, how that affects the alley and affects the neighbors.
Yeah.
And then also backing out of a garage, if you drive a big pickup, I mean, you're going to be in the alley before you can actually see.
Yeah.
So that 10 feet at least gives you a little bit of time to be able to see out there to see if anybody's coming.
Not take out any gas meters either.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed for the gas company.
Well, I still like the 10 feet. I was thinking a lot about this last couple weeks because I've been working on one of our buildings that's on Main Street. And granted, commercial's got different rules than residential, but we have alley access behind one of our buildings where I can back into or pull into, and the neighbors have a garage right across the way. And the only way that I can get into my space, or if they're going to get into their space, is we have to go onto each other's spaces to get in there. It's that tight. And so that made me think maybe we don't want this thing closer than 10 feet because then we're just going to create these issues. And,
Yeah.
It's one thing in the commercial area where you're kind of already in that mindset of it's going to be tight, but in residential, not everybody's probably going to have that idea. And you can just see accidents and hitting your neighbor's buildings and all that kind of thing. So I think the 10 is probably still a good idea.
all the campers and trailers that are around town.
Yeah.
If you're trying to put that in your garage and you only got 4 feet, you're never gonna make that.
I was just curious, what the definition of that, do we have alley in there? What's that?
Alley?
Yeah.
Yeah, that we went over that one. I think that was the first one we went over. Which it's secondary to utilities. So the purpose of the alley is for utilities.
So I was wondering if we should, on the setback, I know it's property line, but do we want an alley as part of that? You know, it's the property line.
Well, and the property line is the edge of the alley. The official property line is the edge of the alley. The alley, most alleys, there's some that are a little bit different, but most of them are 20 feet wide. So, and it's, the block itself, how it was created is it's 140 feet deep lot. 140 feet on the other side is 280. And there's 20 foot for the alley, so that's 300 feet.
Yeah.
So that's how they divide it.
So,
But, so you guys okay with keeping it as is at this point?
I'm really good one.
It's a great place to start. Right?
And I don't mind hearing the variance request at all because it just gets a better conversation going about what people are doing. So,
Exactly.
Well, then it's notified to the neighbors, and it just doesn't show up,
Right. Right.
and then they'll
Blow
come
my
here
phone up.
yeah, after things are already done and it's really hard to undo things. Yeah.
and say, "Why did you allow my neighbor to do this?" Well, it's allowed in the code. If they have to come and request, then they at least get a letter saying,
Yeah. They can have a voice if they want.
Right.
Anybody within 300 feet of the property, which it's not just the center point of the property, it's the edges of the property.
Mm-hmm.
It's close to 2 blocks, depending on where they're at in town.
All right. Any other discussion on that? Okay. Let's move on to reports. Grady, anything to report?
nothing.
Mary Ellen? Wally? Anything to report?
No, a comment, as I drive around town, I'm just seeing some really ugly properties now. One of them's 2 blocks north of me. You know where I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
1004.
There's still an old car sitting there. This one lady was raising her grandkids in that place for a while.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody lives there now.
No.
They're gone.
What jurisdiction do we have over the place, and is it scheduled to be raised or?
The owner is currently talking about selling it to somebody else in town, and their plan is to demo it. But until I know for sure what they're doing, I haven't put it on the list of my demos, because that just prolongs the process if they do want to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
So until I get better information from them, then that'll kind of decide where it's at on my demo list.
last night at the city commission meeting, we set for public hearing 2 properties regarding demolition. So,
Is that one of them?
no.
Oh.
No. But that one has not percolated to the top yet.
Okay.
There's just more than a couple in town. So,
Yeah.
with our budget, we have to prioritize.
The place over on West 16th, is it eligible for what you're talking about?
Are you talking on Colorado and 16th?
Yeah,
Rod's tearing that down this winter.
okay. He bought the property and he's tearing it down. Okay, thank you.
And they got the garage all cleaned out and the garage removed. They were just waiting for it to cool down a little bit so they could actually get in the house to clean the house out.
I have nothing to report. So, Kent? Zach?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Moving on to minutes. Anybody see any corrections, additions, subtractions to the minutes from last time? been a little bit since we met.
Guess only two.
Any changes for either of you two in the last
I
week?
wasn't at the last meeting,
Okay.
so,
Yeah, I didn't know if you looked at the minutes were in the
did.
packet. I didn't.
yeah, no, I did, but it's like, I don't know.
It's all good. Huh? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. With that, I move we approve the minutes from August 13th meeting. Moved by Matt, second by Grady. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed, nay. All right. I didn't entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right. Moved by Grady, second by Mary Ellen. All in favor, aye. Yep. Aye. Nobody wants to leave. All right. Thank y'all. And look at that. We made it just under an hour.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Good.